Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay updated on all things artificial intelligence, or if you're an enterprise employee trying to learn the perspectives of execution, ROI, benefits, strategy, or culture, or if you're a heavy Azure platform user looking to go deeper in Azure AI, then this is your ultimate destination. You can find us in Apple Podcasts as well as YouTube. I'm Shadab Hussain, your co host of the show. I'm a director of data and AI at Microsoft with over 23 years of experience in the analytics and AI field.
And I'm Jamie Basilico, co-host of the AI Files with Shadab. As an AI and data technical specialist and architect, I have over 35 years of experience working with Fortune 500 companies throughout my career. Please note that this is not an official Microsoft channel. The views and opinions expressed by the co-host are their own and do not reflect the views of Microsoft. Today, I wanted to bring on a guest, Scott Bounds, who is a seasoned expert with over 28 years of experience in enterprise sales and technical roles. Currently, he leads the data and AI team of architects here at Microsoft, and he specializes in delivering cutting-edge cloud-based technologies for media and entertainment, sports, and other various industries. So without further ado, let's welcome Scott to the show. And with that, I want to bring Scott onto stage. As mentioned, Scott is a manager here at Microsoft, but I'll let Scott kind of talk through what his role as a senior director is here, and we'll get into the questions for today. Scott, welcome to the AI Files.
Great, thanks, guys. It's really a pleasure to be here. So so my name's Scott Bounds. I kind of wear a couple hats here at Microsoft. So I've been at Microsoft for a really long time. I'm probably one of the few people that's been here longer than Jamie. So my role today is I really kind of wear two hats. One is I manage a data and AI team here across our sales territory in our region. And there's a big chunk of media, entertainment, sports, and advertising inside of there. Also, another hat I wear is I'm kind of like the media CTO for our group. I've actually been working in media and media-focused customers for quite a bit. A couple years ago, I saw where the puck was going, and I moved over to a data role. But I'm keeping my really, thinking about, all that media, not just in data and AI, but actually full-blown workflows, and you can see how AI fits into those.
Awesome. Great. A lot of great background that you just said in terms of experiences, which, as we opened up the show to talk about, diving into an industry as it relates to, again, whether it's media, sports, or just overall advertising and the ways that AI is changing that. I guess one of my first questions for you, and not Microsoft specific, but, when you think about AI and AI tools in general, how do you see, AI being used for content creation or production value or just general use within this wide spectrum of, again, whether it's media, sports, or advertising? Obviously, there's a lot that's changed, let alone within the last 18 months, going back maybe even, 5 or 10 years. So big picture, what do you see have changed, and how are companies utilizing these advancements in terms of AI in a broad spectrum?
Sure. Yeah. So I think what's really good is to think about when you say media, entertainment, and sports, and sports as media. It's really important to think about how large that is. So what that includes, yes, that is movies. That is movie studios, TV shows, live news programs. So you have you actually have production studios. You have distributors, you have like TV stations. So when we think about media, that goes everything from movies to TV shows, reality shows, local news, sports. You actually have on demand as well as live. You have all the advertising, and then also just think about all the platforms. So once again, what you might do for a 10-pole movie is something totally different than you might need to do for a online advertising campaign or something in the middle. Also, what's important to remember is there's a whole spectrum. So you have the stuff that goes right in front of the, that you actually see on the screen, or through your phone. But there's also a lot of pieces there. So you have the customer-facing things, and they've been using AI for years in different ways. It is changing, getting even broader. But then you actually have all the production stuff, know, think about the production. All you need to make a production happen, or an archive, or all the back office. You know, when you really start looking at media, you know, what's really crazy is rights and rights distribution. Think about a piece of content or a TV show, and how is that licensed around the world in the different markets. And hey, I want to sell this to XYZ market. Well, what's the rights? What do I have? So, and then not to mention, think about everyone who makes a production. Think about all those contracts with venues, actors, directors, you know, you name it. You know, there's a big piece of it from across the board.
Yeah. I mean, you touched upon one area, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later on, but the rights, the residuals from content that gets created. And I know that there's been a lot of dialogue. There's been some legal impacts as
Right.
well as, you know, what gets created. So maybe just a teaser, what have you run into as it related to,
Sure.
you know, rights, and there's even way further than that as we start to talk about deepfakes, but just at that top level, what have you run into already, and what seems to be top of mind concerns might be a better way of asking it.
Sure. And there's two ways to think about rights. One is rights distribution or contracting and who gets to show what. And that's really, you know, today that might be a whole bunch of papers, or that might be in 4 different systems to figure it out. You have rights from that way. What's really interesting is when you start thinking about talent now. You know, there was 2 strikes last year. There was a writer's strike, and there was an actor strike. And the writer's strike is very interesting. You see how that played out. So they actually addressed, well, I thought it was a really interesting way how they addressed AI. So when you think about writers, there's 2 different pay scales, right? There's one is for, you know, net new creative writing. You wrote a script. And then imagine if you're a writer, they bring you in to edit and punch up or just modify a script that's already written. And there's actually a difference in pay for that. And what you'll see in the writer's contract is they actually have, if it is an AI-based piece of content that you're bringing you in as a writer, for you, the pay scale actually counts as if that was, you know, net new writing for you. So you're seeing it from that way. You definitely see a lot of concerns about you know, liability and things like that. So as you start getting your first use cases, you know, you talk to a lot of lawyers, right? So, and then also you have all the questions about the talent, like, okay, what does this really mean for me from that? And then you even see a lot of AI where, especially it comes in, is how can we make the whole aspect of internet, you know, taking a dubbing and making content international, right? So where today you might use voice actors in different countries, and then, but you might want to, you know, could you use AI if you get the right permissions? You know, you could even have situations, and you've probably seen this in the news, where James Earl Jones licensed his voice to, you know, to Star Wars to use that. But we've also talked with customers. Imagine if you had a child actor, and if they had been on a show, and imagine they're going through puberty and their voice is changing. You know, they might want to still leverage that voice for the show or maybe animated content. So once again, working out the contractual aspects of it. Now, that's the legal stuff. Then you have everything that is in the, the Wild West out there, where people are doing things that is totally, you know, I always look at it through 3 lenses. One is, can you do it technically? 2, is it legal? And as you know, a lot of content, a lot of things with AI, the laws aren't catching up. And 3, is it ethical? And I think a lot of people are looking at that, right? So can I clone Jamie's voice and use him for a robocall or use him for something else? Yes, you've seen that. But, you know, and it's interesting because if I put on Microsoft hat, our process to allow someone to do that, to clone a voice, we actually have to go through the ethical AI steps. Whereas, you know, hey, if you just want to download some stuff and, you know, use some of these AI tools, you could do it without that ethical view.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point on that, you know, as far as like, can you do it? Yeah, there's the technical aspect, but then there's that legal and ethical side. I'd almost think that the technical piece is probably the easier of those 3. Yes, there's some things like video generation that is still being created through AI, but what do you see as the more complex piece to satisfy between those 3?
Yeah, I think it matters the type of content you're looking at. I think it's on both sides. So one is, as we even think about something where we build systems that say you want to use Face ID for, to identifying, maybe players or actors. So you might have a situation where, the media company is like, hey, I don't want to rely on what's in the model. I want to train my own face model, so I am aware of what was trained. So once again, you might have a case of, hey, do I want to use we could use a cognitive service from Microsoft or something, with an LLM to recognize faces. They'll say, hey, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure the faces we recognize are trained on my own data. I want to make sure that. So once again, and also you have different liability risks on who the people are. So you kind of could see if you are a large, a large media company doing tentpole movies that cost $200 million plus and with huge marketing campaigns, you might feel a little different than someone who's doing a quick reality show and thinking about what you want to do inside of there. So it really depends. And also on the organization, just everything, the organization, the risk profile. This all comes down to risk, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all run by lawyers and accountants, right?
Yeah. And the almighty dollar too.
Yes, exactly.
I might have picked up on something, maybe not, but you mentioned like sports teams, creating their own model to find out who that person is. Maybe there's something there that relates to an example that you already did. Can you share
Sure.
for what's possible to share? But any examples of where Microsoft AI technology, and again, AI is a broad spectrum. We could, it's everything from, like you said, face detection to maybe voice and or generative AI. But are there things that you can cite as examples on where Microsoft is working with, let's say, sports teams or advertising or media outlets to use some of that technology?
Oh, definitely. Personally, I spend a lot of my time with customers in the sports space. So I think a great example here is the NBA. We actually have a partnership with the NBA. We partner with them on, their direct-to-consumer offering called Game Pass. So you're seeing AI in several different ways there, right? So one way is something that we just launched. It came out toward the end of the season. And this is actually Insight. So really what's happening now is it's a way to engage fans inside the app. So if you're a subscriber, so basically what we're doing is what the NBA is doing is they're actually getting all the stat data that's coming in on the game. And what they are using is they're pumping all that into Azure OpenAI, and it's creating insights during the game. So imagine it could be things that could be milestone streaks analysis. So it's kind of like a light color commentary. So at the end of the first quarter, hey, you get a summary. Like, for example, during the finals, I was out at dinner with my wife. I come back, it's the third quarter. I can look at the insights. So there's a box score. There's insights and say, here's the end of the half. And there's actually three summaries. There's a general one, and there's one for each team. Like, hey, the Mavericks went on a 10-2 run to end the half. They surged by 3, and the bench scoring was this. And then as the game's going on, you might see, hey, XYZ player just has their season high, or so and so just got a double. So that's a case of creating insights and engagement with fans. And at the same time with the NBA, we're actually using AI machine learning for personalization. So when you think about media and streaming, how do you personalize it and customizing it? So that's why it wasn't this year. If you think about last season, they did 1 billion views in their app. And that is not about how good the video looks. That is about understanding me as a fan and how do I personalize and give me the content that I want to look at. So those are a couple examples where right now we also have some stuff in the over at soccer teams in the Premier League. Actually La Liga over in over in Europe. So there's lots of examples. I think that our big marquee customer here is really the stuff that we're doing with the NBA. It's pretty exciting.
So Scott, you talked about this media and the sports, and both are very exciting industries, and they both are established industry. They have been around for quite some time. I was wondering, how do you find them? Are they, and that means since they have been established for quite some time, they have a lot of tech debt or legacy infrastructure, like in terms of the modernness. how agile they are in adopting these new AI-led technologies, and are they struggling because of the tech debt and not able to adopt them?
No, you're actually seeing about it. So if you think about it, if your budget, and I forget which studio it was, I wouldn't want to say, but imagine you have a huge budget for all your production. Maybe it's $20 billion a year. If you can use AI to help automate some of these, so it might not be the end production. Imagine if you could go from do a script breakdown, and storyboard automatically, right? Or also speed. Another thing to imagine about media is totally upended from where it used to be. So if you think about media today, what you'll see is who actually watches live TV. You might watch it for, sports is something where you watch live, right? And then everything else, sports, maybe it's a tentpole event like an award show, or maybe something like the conventions that happened recently. But really, a lot of it's moved towards streaming. So these companies have to retool themselves. So it used to be, if I was a media company, I would actually have a TV station, and I just would have all the cable distributors would pay me carriage fees, and that's how I would get all my money. And if you're like ESPN, right? Remember, like a chunk of your every subscriber on there gets you pay, they get like X dollars per subscriber, is how it used to be. Now they're cutting cords, going direct. It really has to change the model. We're heading into college football season. If you're a sports fan, go into ESPN and look at all the live stuff that you could stream. So if you're a cable provider, you get, ESP 1, 2, maybe news, maybe, there might be 4, maybe, depending on what your package is, but you can actually watch like 20 games at the same time. You have football, you have women's soccer, you have volleyball, and really that fragmentation, and then how do you get eyeballs is really key. So they really need to understand their consumer. As well as there's so much more production. I was listening to a podcast actually driving yesterday, and they were talking about, actually it was the Beastie Boys. They were talking about growing up in New York. Back then there were 3 stations. There was like ABC, CBS, and NBC, and you watched whatever was on TV. And when you see the numbers of what people watch back then, so it's a different ball game. So they really have to adapt. The sheer amount of content they need to make, and really niche content, it really changes. So you think about the scale of how much content you actually put together.
That brings up another sort of interrelated question. If there's so much content, right, that's being created or streamed, part of that also is knowing your customer, like me, right?
Yeah.
They have to know what my habits are. I'm assuming AI has got to be used in that somehow. I mean, I know, as an example, if you're watching Netflix, they make recommendations, but I am a subscriber of ESPN Plus, and I see things change. So are there things that you know of that relates back to use of artificial intelligence or machine learning that's incorporated into the way that they think about personalizing that content? Because to me, that almost sounds like it relates back to this upheaval that you're talking about, or new ways that these companies need to think about, how they create their business model, but how they personalize content, how they, get that fan engaged. And also there's got to be some tie back to how are they going to, I'll say, optimize their advertising strategy and delivery mechanism. So anyway, there's got to be.
I'll give you a couple examples. I'll give you two cloud examples and one more of an on-prem like sports example. So if you think about it, when I go with my profile for the NBA app, I say, here are the teams that I follow, and there might be individual players. Because once again, it's the same as, some sports are player driven, some sports are team driven, some are kind of both, right? I grew up a Steelers fan, so I just care about if the Steelers win. I don't care if they win by 1 or 30, right? I just want them to win. Whereas other people, like, think about fantasy football. I just want to see all the LeBron clips, or I want to see all the Caitlin Clark big 3-pointers. So when you go to the NBA app, you actually choose that. And also looking at what your history there, it can actually, when you start thinking about those screens and those suggestions, it totally plays into that. Another example that really uses Gen AI is what we just saw at the Olympics. So there was actually powered by Microsoft Copilot. There was your daily Olympic recap. And what it would be is there's all these different, you say what you're interested in. And there was, AI generated, there's a highlight clip box, and it was, there was an intro by Al Michaels. It would say, hey, Jamie, here's what happened today on the track, or hey, Scott, here's what's happened today, in the boxing ring, and give you a summary. And so we would actually highlight that, give, and then, show the clip block with maybe 3 or 4 clips. And there might be an outro that says, hey, remember to tune in tonight in primetime to see this, right? So if you think about that, they had a whole bunch of different categories, and the 3 that you want versus Shadab or myself might be different, and you can actually, do that. So once again, it's being personalized by saying my name when I watch it, and this was on mobile and the web, as well as it's actually using the content of that clip block. It's actually creating the summary, and then they used an AI voice of Al Michaels to actually voice it. So that's a great way that you're doing it. Now, another team, and this is really, really interesting. We work a lot with the Miami Heat, and the Miami Heat really see the value of data about their customers. And so we actually worked with them a number of years ago, and they actually, when you walk in the Miami Heat arena, they know if you sit in your seat, they know where you got your ticket, how much you paid for your ticket. They also know about what you're buying as far as merchandising or retail or things like that. So they're actually running this as an operation, and the Heat are very successful from a business standpoint. They actually, since they understand that, using, it's all around data, right? Data, machine learning, the secret sauce about how they have that with their models. They actually spun off they actually have their own company now called 601 Analytics. They resell that solution to other sports teams, sports leagues, European, they're selling it around the world. So at the end of the day, I really say it's around data, because you guys know this. When you have AI, how you get value and differentiation is using your own data, and figuring that out is really what it's about.
Mm.
No, that's super interesting, and I like the fact. What was the name of the offshoot company that the Heat 6-1 or something?
No, 601 Analytics, which is the area code of Miami. So,
okay.
So it's the Miami Heat. I was actually just down there talking with their chief data person about how do we move this forward and even use more AI and data and bringing new capabilities. And really, at the end of the day, it's not about AI. It's about running your business and how you can really think about how to segment your fans and how to bring in sponsorships and monetize them and all that kind of good stuff.
Yep. And I equate it to, they're an early adopter and really understanding the true value of data and where this fits in. And then, like you said, they could, reuse that as a solution.
Oh, yeah.
Because I love that.
If you think about it, you don't get Netflix data, right?
No.
And, there might be some tools out there to tell you what's most popular on Netflix, but that data is, they don't share that broadly about the details. And even way back when, you could see how they make decisions based off of data. Because, I think what's really interesting is the House of Cards example. It was a number of years ago, House of Cards with Kevin Spacey.
Yep.
They shot that to numerous networks, right? And what Netflix did was, when they talk about this, is they took a look at, hey, this is a remake of a UK show. We know we have data on that. We have data about the stars of the show we want to have. And I think for this show, it was a 2 or 3 year commitment. So if you wanted that show, you had to write a check for $100 million. So once again, you have the gut feeling, but also the data to back it up. So when you think about making these decisions about if you see a script, where does it fit in? What's our potential? So there's a lot of data and analytics for, what to greenlight and what to produce. Same thing with sports. Like, think about sports. How to use data and AI to determine who you should draft or what free agents you should sign. So once again, it's a big factor in decisions that you see on the screen that you don't see on the screen.
Yeah, I need all that data for my fantasy team in football. So
yeah, it was interesting. I was actually on a plane Friday, and the guy sitting next to me was he was a college ref, and he actually scored games for PFF. PFF is a great way to get scoring data that you use for fantasy football, and his job was to actually score the game. So you can see, like, if you think about something like that, you're going to have all this data you're going to use, but at the end of the day, it's a human kind of scoring that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully we can automate some of that moving forward.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
So, Scott, you talked about how they are using the AI and data in all the decision making. One more decision making, which is very crucial for this industry, is all about the advertising and promotions, right?
Mhm.
And without that, it really collapses. So, what how do you see that changing? How are they, because one of the thing is that media companies, I think probably not as much in the sport, but definitely media companies are like battling it out for the advertising revenues, for the new kind of channel revenues. How are they using that to evolve their advertising strategies, promotion strategies, and get revenue or even retain revenues?
Yeah, so you also have to think about the different channels for advertising, right? So, if it's on linear TV, you know how that works, right?
Mm.
Where they have the buys there. But also, is this advertising on social? So is this advertising going on, Instagram or Snap or something like that? So you have to really think about a campaign and how do you get the creative? And then you might have a different message. Like if you wanted to market to, me and Jamie are about the same age. If you want to market to us or a 20-year-old, it's probably going to have a different tenor for the same piece of content. It's kind of like when you watch Netflix, different times of the day and who you are, you might see a different trailer, right? In the networks, in the Netflix preview. So definitely there's a lot of tools to help the creative people, but also, think about especially when you start looking at digital advertising, you can really customize it for the person. And also at scale, you can really do a lot of A/B testing of what ad works a lot, the best. So you'll see a lot of that with, political campaign advertising, all the different versions based on that, or, you definitely think about that. Now, the other thing that you'll see in advertising is they do want to do integrated advertising into shows. So like sometimes you don't even know it's advertising, but it's all that product placement. It's like more, how it comes in. So it's interesting where if you watch something on a channel and say on demand, you might get the same 3 ads and it might be some, 2 pharmaceutical ads and, something else. But other ones you'll see how they're integrated and mapped in. So it's very key from an advertising standpoint. The advertisers have to take a look at how do I respond? And I want to respond to an RFP or I want to put a pitch together for XYZ customer. So they want to use that to very quickly get the pitch together, help with some creative. And then, once they have that one, then you start really thinking about the different algorithms and how you want to target things and, and how do you play that whole thing when you look at different digital channels to what you're driving. I mean, some of it's really low hanging fruit. I mean, if you think about it, our CTO had one where how many podcasts out there don't actually put links out on LinkedIn or Instagram. So imagine just very simply, and I did this for the customer came in and I said, hey, look, here's the podcast that you guys have last week. There's no Instagram presence. I'm going to I took a transcript of that and I actually created a blurb targeted for the audience and as well as some custom art using Dolly. So you don't have Instagram. Now you can actually, push it to drive viewership and eyeballs there. So a lot of different ways. I think it really depends a lot on the channel and the way it is. One thing too is there's a lot of clips, right? So, hey, if you think about the international audience, so all your clips are in English. So, hey, there's a lot of tools with AI to do translation and dubbing and all this great stuff now. So if I have a clip, why don't I, at least put subtitles in, hey, here's a subtitle in Spanish, in Hindi, and, in Chinese or whatever your markets are. That could be the little things that could really drive it, more the long tail of all your content. So,
Jamie, we need to hire Scott for our promotion of our channel.
Yeah, I know. So we don't have to write up our own intros or recaps of the sessions.
exactly.
Let me take it in a slightly different angle, or at least some different questions. And we kind of alluded to it up front, at least in the first question, which is really around the authenticity of the things that are being created. You mentioned about responsible AI. I guess my question would be, not necessarily in the broad sense, but specifically, what is Microsoft doing within its own AI technologies to help quell some concerns around, authenticity around content that's being created or deep fakes? Again, whether or not it's showing up in, advertising or any
Mhm.
type of media, what's being done or what's not being done.
Yeah, there's a couple ways to look at it. One is you have stuff that's just built into some of the models, right? So if you go into Azure OpenAI, especially from like a Dolly standpoint, you actually see some copyright protections where things are copyrighted, right? Where it won't let you do things like that. Now, I think what's really important around deep fakes is we actually have a partnership with several other companies. This goes back a way where we want to look at, and I wouldn't say it's deep fakes, it's really provenance, right? So think about, you might have seen the picture of the Pope in a big puffy jacket or something else, right? And really what we've done is, I think the acronym is L2PA. I think that's what the acronym is. But anyway, it's a consortium of us, the
C2PA, I
BBC.
think.
What's that?
I think it's C2PA.
C2PA. Yep. It's got a bunch of letters and numbers. So and that's the next follow on from other stuff that we did. So that's really around a lot of stuff around news. So those are putting standards in place where, and it's very interesting because from that you're actually putting crypto in the headers, so you can actually judge the provenance. So you don't have to follow some chain like through that side, through blockchain. Where, and also too, I know when I was talking, I did a panel with someone from from there in our partnership. Even from a tech standpoint, we're making sure it's open to swap out the crypto in the future. So once you start getting quantum computing and break the crypto we had, you could swap it out. So you kind of have this whole consortium with provenance. That's us and news organizations. It's even being built into products. I think Designer might have it, and once again, when you think about content creation, a lot of times Microsoft, we're the platform, and you have these tools like, hey, you might be using, Adobe, right? So it might be, inside of Creative Cloud with, Premiere or Photoshop, or you could be using an Avid or something else. So lots of different aspects of it and how that actually plugs in, because you want to put the AI. When I think about AI, I think of AI, especially in the creative side, two ways. One is automation, and the other is really augmentation to help you. And also think about the different types of jobs, right? Because you kind of have premium type of things, right? So I need a graphic artist to create this, poster for the Oasis tour they just have, or something, or creative for like, a Microsoft or an Apple campaign or something. But if you need someone do you want to spend that money to give you 3 views of a paint can for an ad? That's great. So you have to think about high cost versus very low cost for the types of creative you're actually creating. So that also factors into when you start thinking about it.
I've got another question, and it is kind of related to authenticity and things that are being created, but slightly different tact. It's about the humans that are being, I don't want to say displaced, but where they fit now, like the ad creators or commentators in a sports broadcast, like you just mentioned, like Al Michaels. Maybe you could just take someone's voice and just run with it. It's like, where do actual people then fit in? So my question is really around like the human / AI. Where do they fit? Like, where's that balance between, are humans still going to be in a loop? I'm assuming the answer is yes, but
Right.
are there things that are being put in, and maybe it's part of the contracts you were talking about before? And let me give one good example on this. A couple episodes, it might have been the last episode ago, we were talking about, and there's one tool for it's Ideogram, which used to be some ex-members of Google created a new company around image creation. What that tool is really good at is text embedding within images. So if you think now from like an advertising company, great images, and then you could also create textual information around that. Does that displace a graphic artist that would have been in an ad agency? So are there things that are happening within the industry that ensures that there's this balance between computer generation and human in the loop to either prepare, create, review, and or just flat out not using AI?
Yeah, I'd say yeah. So let's take the analogy to manufacturing, right? So if your job was to put 4 screws in a piece of metal on an assembly line, you're going to be replaced by a robot, right?
Yeah.
But there are higher value jobs. So for example, we know customers where someone's job is to transcribe press conferences all day long. So once again, you can do that. Hey, let's use AI to give me a transcription. Maybe I then proof it. Something that might take. Think about the augmentation aspect of it. So a lot of this is, even like for example, that NBC example, for that Peacock example, there's a human in the loop. Here's the script. Let me review it. So once again, I think what you'll see is going to higher value roles and more creative roles. So you know how LLMs work, right? So it's based on mathematical probabilities. What should be the next word, right? And when you start thinking about it, could you use that to help you write a news story for the local news, say for local news? It might be a good use for that, right? Or if you want that to be say you have a movie franchise and it's sequel number 14, you know how they all go, right? But I watched a movie like the other night, and it was like so creative. It was called Hundreds of Beavers. It was like crazy, right? It was really creative. And think about those shows that are very creative. That's where you see the human. So think about it more as, how can I get more productive? How can I do it faster? And once again, it matters what you're doing. Is this something where you think about how quickly people can churn out things like romance novels, right? That, hey, it's pretty formulaic and you kind of know how it is. And compare that to like George R.R. Martin, where we've been waiting 6, 7, 8 years for book 5. And the series ended. But once again, there's different levels of it fits in different ways. So I would say it really depends. But I think you'll see efficiencies where people might have jobs, but now they can like go up a step. And it's the same as if you're thinking about legal when you're reviewing, you think about those associates, you're automating some of that. So it's very similar, but human in the loop is very key, especially if things are going out on the air. And once, if you have things that are being released and you're a company, you need to make sure, does this meet our standards and processes? Even today with humans, you do have standards and processes that, take a look at your, what are you saying, the target audience, all that type of stuff. So there will be humans in the loop, but what level can this help speed things up, help augment and get things done? So I'll give you another great example where you'll see a lot of this being built into tools. So in live broadcasting, we have a partner called Evertz, right? And they do a lot of stuff where you would do broadcasting of like all the different games and everything. So they actually have built we talked about Copilots, Microsoft Copilots. They have a Copilot in their system. So imagine it's a basketball game and you want to queue up different shots. Like, hey, instead of having someone over there clipping all this video, you could say, show me, give me the last 5 shots by blue. And blue might be, whatever team that is, the Mavericks or whatever. And the system can actually take those. It has all the data, the metadata, and queue those up, and you could like run that as a package. So you're seeing the automation to make things a whole lot faster and easier.
That's cool. That's cool as a fan, because you don't have to sit through the whole sports event. You just want to see the highlights of the things that matter most to you.
So. Oh yeah. Yeah. Hey, if my team isn't playing, I watch Red Zone.
Yeah. Very true.
I think the way I'm looking at this is, I think let's think a little bit from a future point of view. It seems like, and I'll give you an example of as my title suggests here, I'm a tennis lover. I watch a lot of tennis, and there is a dramatic shift happening in the tennis world. So if you see most of the major events, they used to have linemen and linewomen. Completely gone.
Yes.
The calls are being made by the AI.
Yes.
And that has, now what has happened is that with that being done, now you can't even challenge the players, many times, very, like, for example, it's a flagrant, like calls, and then they will just challenge it. And there was a infamous incident also where Serena Williams was really not happy about that Align Women's call, and there was a confrontation. So what I see is that it seems like that people still want not AI to play, players to play actually, and then audience and spectators like us watching. I think that's the only part where it remains completely human, but everything else people prefer it to go, because like by putting the AI to make the line calls, now the challenge system is gone. Things have become faster. There is no more contention. There is no more anger in the players that, okay, you made the wrong call, right? So it is actually making better that experience. But yes, the human part does go away. Like some roles will dramatically be eliminated or completely transformed. So the people have to constantly evaluate what kind of role they're doing and how much is it really the human factor, or is it just simply prone to the automation. um,
No, that's a really good point. And I think this is also a good point. Just think about sports and AI and auto officiating. Like that makes so much sense for like line calls, right? But start thinking about things that are a whole lot more subjective. So line calls, yes, could you think about, other types of calls where you could use like camera angles and analyze it, but then think about other things, right? I actually asked the guy who was sitting next to me, how do you determine whether they're called holding or not? Like if you would use AI, you could call holding on every single play.
Every play.
So what's the subjective aspect of when you call holding, when you don't call holding? Things that are a little where you need that subjectiveness, you can't really automate, right? So I think you're totally right. You will see that because like that's a call you want to get right. Like, and hey, do you have the right camera angles to do something like that? So yeah, but you're also seeing this in coaching where like, hey, in basketball, the whole court's surrounded by cameras, and you actually track, per fraction of a second, 27 data points on where people are, and you can do interesting things for fans as well as interesting things for coaches around that. So, but also too, I think if you have to look at where it's actually going. So, we have some stuff here at Microsoft. You've probably seen, we have these like, avatars. So I can actually have a 2D avatar and have a custom voice and voice things. What's the use case for that? The use case, there's a lot of great use cases. Could be internal, could even be in a mobile app, could be things like that. However, that's not going to be put into a 4K movie, right? And when you start thinking about that, look at the cool stuff. Like if you take a look at what Adobe's doing inside of Photoshop, look at these new AI filters they have and things that you could actually do. What you're seeing is, that type of automation where you might spend a whole lot of time to block out a background, remove something. Now it's really automatic, right? It's moving. So, and also too, a lot of this AI is not like standalone over here. It's being built into the tools that people use. We talk about archives. Imagine I need to go into like a 60-year archive, or I want this shot from a reality show, or hey, I'm doing a news story. What do I have about the history of XYZ politician on my local news or something? So there's a value add there, and how do you get that metadata in really using it? So AI could be metadata that you could then have a human, like a producer, try to find stuff. So a lot of different angles. Probably matters on. There's a lot of use cases as well. So there's going to be AI is going to help make things more efficient, but it's not all automation. It's how to make me as a person more efficient.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is that like video indexing, audio indexing, that collecting that metadata, making it taxonomy out of it, and then let people search, right? Because nobody has time to watch a 3-hour match. They want to search for the moments, and they want to watch that, right? Rather than having to watch the entire reel.
Yeah. But that stuff exists today. So we have partners like WSC Sports, they get a data feed, but they actually can auto clip highlights and then post them. Right. So if you're thinking, there are systems today for like sports highlights that can do that, and once again, could you take a piece of a video and give you a trailer? Right. And what's the trailer for different things? You can maybe get to that. But right now today, like that sports highlight stuff, all that's today in multiple sports. There's multiple people that do that. One of our big partners, WSC Sports. A lot of the leagues use them already around the world. It's a great company out of Israel, good Microsoft partner. So yeah, you're seeing this thing. So once again, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get faster content on the air? Are you trying to edit content? How fast do you have to do that? Or are you trying to, write a script? But also security is really key. When you have you don't want something in a Marvel movie to leak, right? So I was listening to it was Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman were talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. If you remember back in the day, Wolverine Origins, it leaked about a week before. It was an early thing without all the special effects done. So, Game of Thrones leaked a week early with somewhere. So you got to think about where other people, they might want to leak something to kind of get some buzz. So, once again, you have to think about how you protect this, how to use it, all that kind of great stuff.
This is actually awesome. And I also wanted to ask Scott, so as a spectator, we are going to experience all these things. And of course, people like us, like common men who are not the sports persons or the professionals, how does the AI change our own the way we play the sports? I play a few times a week. How is the AI also impacting a common man's life in sports or the way they play sports, not just watch sports?
Sure. So if you think about it, they've had these for a while, but it could be you could use AI to help you on swing analysis or something like that. Think about all the AI on how you're tracking fitness, right? So if you think about if people are wearing, if you have whatever device it is, everywhere from a Apple Watch to whatever, a Garmin that you're using, you're getting all this data. And you could use that data to understand just from your own performance and what you're trying to do, right? So definitely you're seeing these tools. And, I know a friend of mine that just from wearing his watch, it gave a signal about AFib, and he called his cardiologist and said, check me out, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe, past you wouldn't have that. So I can see you could see this inside of there to help you learn and ramp up quickly. And then to everything from, so there's a lot of different ways you're seeing it. And really, from a company standpoint, it's all about engaging, right? So how do you create fans and engage with people to keep the eyeballs on the TV show, right? Is it a TV show? Is it a movie? How do you build the buzz? How does it sustain otherwise? How do you just think about what's going to happen now as soon as we kick off the NFL season, all the different aspects. And you got to remember, those advertisers pay the NFL. The NFL rights are like $10 billion a year. So they write the checks to the NFL. Now they have to monetize that with advertising to make their money from buying those rights. So it's really, really getting the eyeballs and getting them, getting people to engage and stay longer. There are so many options from media entertainment. There are so many options. If you think about it, in the last 48 hours, I think I've watched ESPN streaming. I watched something on Apple TV. I think I watched something on Netflix. I watched something on Hoopla. If you haven't heard of Hoopla, if you have a library card, you can get content. Hoopla and Canopy both are with your library card to watch content. Once again, there's so much content. YouTube, depending on what you want to watch and how you find it. So, a lot of ways how it all fits together. So it's really, if you're the company, how do I get a fan? How do I drive my engagement to create super fans so I can monetize them?
Love the super fan.
Yeah.
It's all about monetizing. At the end of the day, it's about the almighty dollar and what you could do to either make things more productive, streamlined, or entice new fans or followers. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. There's so much stuff out there. How do you know what to watch? When you had three TV stations, you had 3 options. How many options do you have now? People will spend an hour trying to find a half-hour thing to watch.
So that's funny you mentioned that. My wife yells at me all the time on that. It's like, you're just scrolling through all these things. Just pick something. I'm like, there's so many things to watch. I end up just watching previews of everything. But
it's a new version of channel surfing.
Yes, exactly. That'll be a topic for a whole new episode.
Yeah, cool.
Well, wanted to thank you again, Scott, for joining us today. Definitely insightful. A lot of things that I learned. So hopefully this was valuable for everybody else that was watching or listening along as well.
Great.
Fascinating conversation. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me on. And hey, I'll be glad to come back in the future. 6 months from now, who knows what it's going to be. Glad to come back and chat some more.
Definitely. 6 months, everything's going to be changed.
Yeah.
We will hold you accountable for your projections.
It could be avatars for me and Shadab on the next one. You never know.
There you go. As long as you get paid for it.
True. That's right. All right. Thanks again, Scott.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.